morning and welcome to Coffee with the Mayor and City Manager. I'm Mayor Cal Sheehy, joined by City Manager Jessica Knudsen.
Good Friday. Happy Friday, everybody.
Today is Friday, October 4th, and it's a special day in Lake Havasu City because it is the first home game for the Lake Havasu High School Fighting Knights on their football team. So we're excited. Lake Havasu City, we talk a lot about the city and the city operations, but there's lots of amazing people that serve our citizens in Lake Havasu City. So we're also an employer. We don't talk about that side of things as much, but the folks that our citizens come in contact with, whether they're dealing with code enforcement or public safety or roads or parks or any of the amazing services we offer, there's faces behind there. And so today we're excited. Many of the folks that attended coffee were greeted by the smiling faces of many of our city team members as they walked in, and many of them are joining us this morning. So we thought it'd be fun to showcase some of the faces behind all of the work that happens in service of our citizens. So thank you so much to Lake Havasu City team members for being here and for your continued support of the culture of Lake Havasu and supporting our Fighting Knights. Yes. So there's lots of competing things to do tonight, but hopefully one of them is going to the football stadium and celebrating and cheering the Fighting Knights on. But there will be many other things to choose from as well. So again, we are rooting for the Fighting Knights, and thank you all for being here. So as usual, we'll go through some items that are happening here in Lake Havasu City, and then afterwards we'll turn it over to our citizens to answer any questions that you may have on anything that we covered or anything that might be on your mind otherwise. So we've had a couple of things that have been in the news lately, and one of those is the closure or the announcement of the closure of ASU at Lake Havasu. So we are, disappointed and disheartened that this occurred in the first place. The university had reached out to my office literally about 6 minutes before they hit send on the public press release and an email out to the students and faculty of the campus here in Lake Havasu. We obviously were surprised by the information, and we've been working really hard behind the scenes to be able to find out some of the reasons why and what opportunities or pathways there are for us to stop that. And so we've been in contact with the governor's office, and we're working with Governor Hobbs and her administration. We're also working with the president's office at ASU to find out when we can have the discussions about potential solutions for that campus to remain in Lake Havasu. That campus was really developed by the spirit of our community. So all the way in the 1980s, the late 1980s, Councilmember Blevins at the time really was working hard to ensure that we had some sort of higher education opportunity within our community. And then for about 2 decades, groups worked on this effort on how they could make that happen. And the Havasu Foundation for Higher Education came to be in the mid-2000s and started really working with different opportunities. And there was lots of things that were explored. At the end of the day, a relationship was established with ASU to create ASU at Lake Havasu in partnership with Lake Havasu City and the Lake Havasu Unified School District. So there are some things that are going on, and the community raised about $2 million to make sure that the campus could come to be. And so we feel like we have a strong stake in this. And so we're not going to go down without having some conversations about how we can revive it. We don't really have a whole lot more information than that because, again, we were just as surprised, but we are working through all of the different channels that we need to work through so that we can see if we can't save that relationship with ASU at Lake Havasu. So we also have been working hard with the Unisource impact. So obviously Unisource has impacted all of our citizens with really large bills that have occurred in the month of July. This went through a process in which Unisource went in front of the Arizona Corporation Commission to ask for a rate increase. They were granted that rate increase. Many of you may recall last August, so a whole year ago, Supervisor Johnson convened the Arizona Corporation Commission so citizens could explain what the needs were and what the impacts would be to this rate case. But nonetheless, the Corporation Commission approved the rate increases, and now that's what we're seeing here in Lake Havasu. So we've been working and talking to the different commissioners to see what options there are. We also had Unisource representatives come to Lake Havasu City to offer services for, there's a variety of pathways for services to reduce your monthly bill, whether that's budget billing or grant opportunities depending on income qualifications and those types of things. So we're doing all of the pieces that we can do to be able to bring access to our citizens to be able to figure out how it works for them. These two items that we just described are difficult ones because they're impacting our citizens, but we have zero control over the impacts on how they got there. So the Corporation Commission is an elected body. There's 5 commissioners that are elected by the citizens of Arizona. It's probably, in my opinion, one of the least paid attention to statewide races, but nonetheless very important. As you can tell, they regulate utilities, and these are some of the impacts that some of their decisions have on our citizens' everyday uses. So we'll continue to monitor that and remain vigilant in the process and insert ourselves where we can or where it makes sense. But I would like to congratulate 2 ladies that are working really hard. If you've signed the petition, either online or in person, over 12,500 citizens have signed that petition in some form or another. And it was started by 2 ladies that live here. So Nancy Dickey and Ruby Pippin, thank you for your efforts on really bringing this together. It goes to show what citizen engagement can do. It was just 2 ladies that said, no, not having it. This isn't going to happen. And they put together this process to sign the petitions. They've worked with the Attorney General's office, and they're working with Unisource to see what outcomes could possibly be there. So, again, great work for them.
Yeah, it's difficult, right? As you identified, it's something that impacts our residents, our small businesses in Lake Havasu City, but we have no ability to do anything about it other than conversations, community engagement, try to make the case the best that we can with whether it's the Corporate Commission or Unisource or others on how we could blend this out. Our residents were told that we were going to see like a 7 to 10% increase in their monthly bills. And that first bill comes back and we're seeing 50 to 100% increases. It's a big impact. Our residents didn't prepare for it. And the amount of disposable income we have doesn't always cover what the extra bills come. We have residents are picking between what to eat, what prescriptions to purchase, and that Unisource bill. And then we see record temperatures this last 2 weeks and going into next week as well too. So it's a difficult situation to be in. The impact on the city's operations is about $1.3 million so far this year in the budget year. So that is an increase in our rates that we pay to Unisource. We don't have the ability, as much as I've asked, to print extra money. That's simply, obviously, not the case. So when that happens to us as a city in our operations, we have to look at sacrificing projects or making cuts in other areas, just like our residents would have to do with their monthly budget and personal incomes. So we're talking about what budgets we cut and what costs that we reduce in order to pay that Unisource bill. So we have 3 large wastewater treatment plants. We have 1 large water treatment plant, and there's a lot of electricity that flows through those 4 plants, in addition to the many lift stations, water storage tanks, and pump stations and other infrastructure throughout the community, not just the lights that go on in a building, but throughout. So we have $1.3 million right now to date in this budget year, and about $800,000 of that is just in our water fund alone. So, but yeah, some impacts. I don't know if we see any relief coming, but again, thank you to our residents for signing that petition and making our voice being heard here in Lake Havasu City. Very loudly at the state level.
So as just mentioned, we don't have the ability just to turn off lights to try and save money. This is when you're turning on your tap at home, the water's coming out, and it has to be pushed up there through the process. So, but all of the energy efficient things that we can do, we've done. When you walk into a room, we have the sensors for the lights to turn off, and they turn on only when someone's occupying it. We have, much to my dismay, we have these rooms have control of the AC that I can't control them. Some computer does, so then I have to roast in the rooms that we go into. We also have solar, and we have all of those types of things. So we're doing everything that we can, but there's two factors here. One, how does it impact our citizens that we are serving each and every day? But then also, how does it impact the operation that our citizens are paying for with their tax dollars? So we'll continue to monitor it and keep you updated if there's anything that we can do. All right, we'll move on to a couple of more exciting things now on the operations in Lake Havasu. The City Core paving project continues to go on. I know a bit frustrating if you're driving in the downtown area, but it is coming together, and each morning you wake up and you drive the road if that's the way you go, and a new section has been opened, which is very nice and smooth. So that project is going very, very well. Since we last met, the council approved an expansion to that project. Well, actually just a merger of that project. We had a separate CIP project for redoing the deck surfacing on the London Bridge. But since we're already on McCulloch, we just put the projects together to save time and efficiency of the project management. Yeah, and money, of course. And so that project is going to continue on. So we'll be into mid-November, and all of that will be wrapping up, including the London Bridge from the island side all the way up. So it'll be a nice, smooth drive that includes McCulloch and Mesquite and Riviera and all of those types of things. And I think we talked about this last time. I'm pretty sure we did. Some of the delays in that is we weren't just doing what we drive on. We were doing the underground utilities. So, and not just our utilities, but all utilities. So we sent out a notice to, Frontier and Allo and the gas company and the electric company and said, hey, anything you have under these roads, and you want to do any infrastructure, make sure you do it now, because we don't want you to cut up the brand new road after we do it. And of course, we did our work as well. So real exciting to be able to do that. We, as many of you know, we've invested money into our road program over the last 2 years so that we can get all of these roads done. We're going to continue to have an eye on that to ensure that our citizens have the ability to drive on these amazing roads that are in our downtown corridor at this point.
Yeah, thanks for mentioning the utility side of things too, because why can't we just mill this road and put some asphalt down? What's taken so long? Well, what's taken so long is what's happening underneath the street. We want water to flow, we want sewer to flow, we want natural gas companies and other utility companies here in Havasu, outside of the city's purview, to get their lines and infrastructure underneath the fresh asphalt that we're going to pour down, because we don't want to tear it up after the fact. So we want to do it in the right order, but getting the utilities completed, collaborating with all the different private parties and private sector and private utilities that are out there, get them on site in the right order is, it's a little bit of a venture for sure. And then just kind of a rule of thumb too, as far as the cost and the budgets. For every dollar we spend on asphalt in a project like this, where we're milling and putting down fresh asphalt, we're spending another 50 cents for what happens underneath the roadway in terms of that infrastructure. But so important. These are investments that we make today that 10, 20, 30 years from now, we look back and go, that was money well spent. And that's the best rule of thumb that we can guide ourselves with.
And also in the downtown area is the Downtown Catalyst Project, soon to be called something else, because we are having a naming contest right now. So this is the Downtown Catalyst on Aquario and McCulloch. It's fenced off right now in the center of our downtown area, and lots of things are happening. We've talked in the past, this project really was born through the America's Best Community process. So Lake Havasu City was a $2 million grand prize winner back in 2016. And one of the projects that rose to the top with the winnings of that was some sort of a downtown project that would be a gathering place for citizens to go and enjoy the downtown area and hopefully spill out into the neighboring businesses and the like. It also was aimed to help grow the student base at ASU, which obviously we didn't get there fast enough with the news in this last week, but we're finally building it. And many times if you've never been on that lot, we thought it was like a flat dirt lot. There was 880 dump truck loads of dirt that were removed from that lot to now give it the proper topography, if you will, so that strollers and walkers and wheelchairs and the like can now get onto that area in a safe way. But once it's done, it'll be used for all of the things that it's used for now, so craft fairs and events and all of those things, but also it'll allow for citizens to go down and enjoy that area as well during an afternoon or an evening, or allow pop-up musicians and just those types of things that are happening. When we approved it, the City Council approved this project. Not all of the elements were included, so there weren't restrooms included at that time. But since then, there's been partnerships with other organizations in our community to be able to bring forward some additional improvements. But as I've said before, all of our park systems and all of the amenities within our community start as something, and it's usually an idea from a citizen, and then they grow into what they are today. So, Rotary Park was beautiful when it opened, but it wasn't as beautiful and as well used and have as many amenities when it opened as it does today. Dick Stamp Park was an amazing Little League facility when we first opened, but it's not the multi-use facility it is today with pickleball and Little League and the other things that go on there. All of our parks have that same story. This will be the same as well. So, Jesse, you want to talk a little bit about some of those additional improvements that we're working on in that area as well?
Yeah, you made mention to some of the donations that the city's received in partnership with Go Lake Havasu and in partnership with Partnership for Economic Development. I want to thank each of those organizations and those boards and directors and CEOs for contributing each $200,000 towards that project. So for a total of $400,000. And James Gray at the Partnership for Economic Development said he's going to reach out and seek additional donations from private businesses in town to see if we can add to that project. So just like you said, we did what we can with the resources that we have, and then we scrap and bring more money to the project as best we can, and in a fiscally conservative way. But those dollars would be utilized for the restroom component that we talked about. So we will have permanent restrooms on that location. And then we're also talking about some type of a small but permanent concession type of facility. So if there is an event that occurs there that a vendor can come in, we'll have the hot water available to do what they need to do to serve food and drink at that facility, and just make it much more about a professional and modern-looking area for that space. So we're hoping to enhance the existing events that take place there now. We're hoping to attract more events into the downtown, and then establish an area that could be used on a day-to-day basis. So to go and enjoy that area best we can. So we're looking still at about probably in April 2025. Ribbon cutting to open the area. But like you said, we're looking for a name. And I think the deadline is coming up. We got a couple weeks left, so you can go to the city's website. There's a QR code, I think, over at the site as well, too. But a submission. So we're asking for what you think the name should be. And we've heard the names like Money Pit, Waste, and all the rest. We're not looking for that one, so let's look for some. There's some names that could be creative. There's some names that could honor, the history of Lake Havasu City, and there's a lot of great submissions, but we're looking for more, and we want to do something that's going to recognize that area for something that we can all be proud of. And they kind of mentioned, the donations coming from Go Lake Havasu, from Partnership for Economic Development. But in addition to that, we received the ABC dollars, which is $1 million towards that project. Excuse me. As the city, and certainly as the city manager, we like other people's money. So we reached out and applied for additional grants for that project. So we received, applied for, and were successful in a $1 million grant from Arizona State Parks. So that goes towards that project. And then we reached out and were successful in receiving a WIFA grant from the state as well, too, for a little over $600,000 for that project. So we are utilizing the minimal amount of local dollars or general fund dollars on this project as we can. So you mentioned all the dump truck loads that went out. That was the city team. They were the ones that were in those the heavy equipment that were digging out the dirt and making that project even more cost effective for the city. I think by utilizing our team, and thanks to Bill Young and Ted and all the crews at Public Works that did that, that was about a $400,000 savings. That we realized when we put the bid out and we saw that, we're like, for $400,000, we can save that. We can do that. Let's put our employees and our experts and our equipment to use to do just that. So we're doing the best we can, like I said, to scrap and use other people's money, and at the end of the day is build a facility in an area that we can all be proud of.
Yeah, when Jess says use other people's money, we're not talking about tax money. We're talking about other people's grant money and grant opportunities. So over 92% of this project is paid for either with the ABC winnings or the grants that we've already received. And of course, the work is still being done on that. So, but the big news story here is if you want to have a say in how to name the park, go to lhcaz.gov, submit your entry, and it'll go through a process all continue to be a part of. So we'll get all of the names together, and then we'll do some some sort of poll of some sort, and we'll all then dwindle it down, and then we'll finally pick the name of what that's going to be. So please get online and do that. And as Justin mentioned, if you're walking in the downtown area, there's a QR code on some of the banners on the fences down in that area. So really exciting things there. We'll stay on the downtown for just a second. We've been working with the Downtown Association. They have some needs. The association is a member group of businesses and potentially property owners in the downtown area, generally from the area of Acoma down to Smoke Tree. So that general area, they have a regular group, and they get together on a regular basis to talk of things of mutual interest. So one of the things of mutual interest to that group has been really with how do you get around the downtown area? What's the parking look like? How does the parking work best? Those types of things. So the city has been working with them, and we'll consider a pilot program that will last about a year or so we can get full seasonality of the way that the street is used and help with their parking challenges. So their parking challenges have to do with not all of the downtown area has parkings because there's still a few vacant lots. And so there's not a lot of continuity in some of those parking lots. And I'm sure you've experienced it when you're parking down there. You go down one lane and you think you're going to be able to turn and park, but it's really, you're now going the wrong way because someone else painted it a different way. And so all of that kind of stuff, we're trying to help them, but it's their property. And we talked about parking in common, I think a couple of coffees ago. And so parking in common is a unique thing in Lake Havasu City, but this area has that. It's basically the parking in common is you maintain and take care of your lot on your property, but the lot is used for the general good of the entire district or neighborhood. Or
I'm a small business owner, and I own the property. I own the building, and I own the parking lot. There is special considerations that were given when I opened up that business from the city, and in return, I've agreed back then, and all future owners agree that that parking lot that I own, that I'm responsible to maintain, I have to put the asphalt down, I have to stripe it, but the customers in the downtown can park there and go to another business. I can't fence it off. I can't charge for parking. I have to allow that to be open for other businesses, and that's for the majority of the parking lots and the businesses in the downtown. And we refer to that as parking in common, and that's something that Robert McCulloch initiated. The concept there is there's a salon that's open, and there's a bar that's during the day, and there's a bar next door that's open during the night. And maybe people at the salon can park at the bar parking lot during the day, and vice versa in the evenings. So sometimes it works, and sometimes it's a little bit of a chaos. But overall, our residents enjoy driving down there into one of the parking lots, parking there, and then visiting maybe multiple businesses in the downtown without worry or concern about paying for parking or otherwise.
Yeah, when it comes to parking, those are my favorite problems to have because that means success is happening. And so now how do we just manage it from there? And so that's what we're trying to help them with. A couple of the components of of what they've asked for, the Downtown Association, is let's pilot out a few areas that there's 2-hour parking on the street. Let's look at some ideas with a sign package that would be uniform across the entire district of where parking is at and where the downtown parking is at. So some of those components we'll incorporate into a pilot program and see how it works and see if those management tools are a good thing or an effective thing. And if not, what else we could do to maybe help them as we manage that district or as they manage their district and their businesses for them. The reason that the council has to get involved with sort of a pilot program is because the parking in common was agreed to in the early days with Mr. McCulloch. So it's either in the CC&Rs potentially or the deed, that their property deed. And so we can't just say you have to do this or they can't agree collectively in their association to do it without council action. And so that's why we have to do, instead of amending the parking in common plan, which we don't know if these tools are going to work, we'll just do a pilot program. And then if these tools work, then we can amend the parking in common in the future. So really the thing here is, do you want 2-hour parking or not? Do you like having kind of an organized parking manner in this area? And those are kind of the feedback that we're trying to receive from citizens. And we'll have a whole year of seasonality and use to see if that's what our citizens like and enjoy in that area. And it complements what the businesses are trying to do in that same area.
It's part of that process, right? So the downtown merchants are organized. They're getting more organized, which is great. They're talking to each other, talking about issues. They're talking about solutions and how they can band together to help build a more vibrant and downtown area. And then they come up with some different ideas that are outside of their purview, and then they're coming to the city and saying, hey, what about, here's 4 or 5 things that we'd like the city to consider. So we listen intently for those conversations, and then we come to a residence in a venue like this or otherwise and saying, okay, so we're hearing about this. Is this something that would be helpful for the downtown businesses? Would it be helpful for the customers that come to that area? And I think the best approach is, you described it, Mayor, is a pilot program. So we can try a few things, and if they work, then we can talk about next steps, and if they don't, we can move on to something different.
We also have been working on the second bridge and Station 7. We've talked about these in the past. We don't have a whole lot of updates to give you today, but just wanted to give you kind of an update of where we've been with it. The second bridge has completed the study. That's been published. It's on our website. That study, just as a reminder, was a requirement of the Senate bill from 2 legislative sessions ago that Representative Biasucci was able to get funding for to be able to do the bridge. So as it was envisioned 2 legislative sessions ago, is Representative Biasucci got the allocation for the study, and then the outcomes of the study he was going to take and then get appropriations to build the bridge. And so what had occurred is he saw an opportunity the very next legislative session, and so he took that opportunity and was able to get the funding in the amount of $35.5 million to build the second bridge. And so it was kind of an awkward process that we were doing the study, and at the same time we're doing construction documents and kind of planning to get the bridge done at the same time. We knew it was awkward, but it also was an opportunity to have the money from the state. And so because of the way that all came to be, that's how we found ourselves in this position. But Jess, I believe it's coming soon that it will come before council, the design contract.
Yeah, so we've talked a little bit about CMAR in the past, construction management at risk. It's just an approach that's different than doing a design, completing a design, and then hiring the contractor to come in and build or make the improvements. So CMAR is where we bring in the design team, and then quickly after that, after we get them under contract, then we immediately solicit and bring in the construction team, so that we have both the design and the construction team in the same room making decisions for a better product at the end of the day. But also sometimes an architect or design team might say we need this, and the construction team says, well, that's way too expensive, why don't we try this instead? So there's a better product at a better price at the end of the day. And then there's 3 words that our council loves to hear as part of that process, is guaranteed maximum price. So we establish what the design and what construction will look like, and we get in our contract, and we know that we're not going to exceed that cost unless we want to intentionally make changes to the process at that point. So we solicited for design. We selected the top team in terms of that's in the best position to do business with Lake Havasu City, and we're underneath negotiations. We're under negotiations with them right now, and hoping to bring that contract to the council at the second meeting of this month. So is that the 22nd or 20? Yeah, so October 22nd, the design contract for the second bridge will be on the agenda. Now, one of the things that we're talking to in terms of negotiations and the scope of work, and as we have that conversation brought to the council on the 22nd, we're not just talking about the design for the second bridge itself. So there's other components that are situated with that, not just the structure, but there's a road network. You can't have a bridge without a road network. And then we start looking at traffic flows. So if we build this bridge and we have this road network, what are the impacts on some of the other nearby intersections? In particular, if we're coming over off kind of by the Hampton, Crazy Horse area, over to kind of the Hampton Inn area, this is just broad areas, and we're putting traffic on Lennon Bridge, or we're taking traffic off 95 to get to the second bridge in that location, where it's pretty easy to estimate that we're going to see increased traffic loads on Palo Verde South and Lennon Bridge Road. So that intersection itself is also part of the design and the scope of work. We want to make sure that we accommodate for traffic and for large trucks and large boats and other traffic that would want to make its way onto the island, whether that's on a day in October or a 4th of July weekend. So trying to make those decisions. And then the other part of it, we talk a lot about the second bridge in terms of traffic flows and access back and forth and the safety associated with the second bridge. But in my mind, at least, is as equally important for this project is our utilities that connect between the island and mainland Lake Havasu. We have some very, very large pipes that run underneath the channel, like 48-inch pipes, 4-feet pipes. These are huge pipes that push water back and forth and push sewer back and forth. And these are all, again, located, they've been bored and they're underneath the channel area. They've been there for many decades. And I don't feel great about the condition of those pipes. They're fine. The unknown is one of those things that's like something's getting old, and I don't have the ability to go look at it. So, maybe like the pipes in your walls at the home, those types of things too, where you try to get proactive. So part of this design approach too is let's look at that infrastructure, those pipes that are underneath the channel. And is there a way to relocate them and bring them out from that area and put them on the bridge itself, and use that bridge as a support system for some of the sewer lines and water lines in that area? If something would occur, then they're much more easily repaired. If there is a break, it's not as catastrophic as it could be right now. So those are some concerns that we have with the existing situation. And we saw an opportunity here to combine that thought with this project. So, it's a utility corridor that you can drive on, but that's some of the conversations that occur there. So we want to see the second bridge. We want to see the utilities identified through this project. We want to see that the neighboring intersections are brought up to standard and specification that's needed for any type of increased traffic in that area. So that's all part of this design that's occurring on this project. But all that will be explained in better detail on October 22nd.
Yeah, so the bridge is moving forward. We have all of the components that are there. Obviously, we would like to still receive citizen feedback about the bridge and some of those components. And, when Jess mentions the infrastructure going across on the new bridge, it's just what we've been doing with redundancy in all of our systems. So we now have redundant fresh water system. We have redundancy in our emergency medical services with our ambulance transport. So this just is another component to have redundancy. Our wastewater treatment plants, we have redundancy. They can all move things to each other through the piping system. And so we're just continuing to build upon that infrastructure. It's not okay really anymore for ratepayers or users or citizens to not have water. Like, that's not an okay thing. People aren't going to be okay with that.
Look what happened across the river in California, the issues that they're having there with their improper planning and funding of their water infrastructure. And now you have people without water, that they're purchasing bottled water. That will not happen in Lake Havasu City.
Yeah, for 2 years they've been doing that. So, just the needs of citizens and the demands, rightfully so, are that you're going to get the services that you expect. And so the only way to do that is we have to have redundancy. So should a system need to go down, we have another way to be able to provide that service while we're either doing maintenance or fixing or repairing whatever went down. So that's kind of the focus when it comes to that infrastructure. Same process will happen with the Station 7. Again, this is a fire station that'll be up on Sloop and McCulloch. Chief Palafis, the fire chief, went through the entire system and operations of the fire department about 18 months ago, came up with a fire study identifying where the best locations of the stations are. So we already had 6 stations, but were those the right locations for those 6 stations? Good for us, they were. So it came out to be that way. They did a heat map, and you can see all of this stuff on the fire study if you go to the website. They did a heat map of where the calls are coming from and where they're going for the calls for service. And Station 7, which we already owned the land in preparation of a future fire station, fit the bill perfectly. So the location was good. So that means prior planning went well, and then we got confirmation that our prior planning was in the right direction. So in this budget, we have Fire Station 7. We'll go through the same CMAR process, which, by the way, is how we built this building, the courthouse and the council chambers, which came in on budget and on time, which was a really good process. So again, it's a cost not to exceed. So if they say that the price is $100, it's $100, unless it's not. Unless it's $80, then we pay $80. So we get the savings. But it's $120, then they eat the $20. So it's a really great benefit for the taxpayers, and it ensures everyone's working on the same mission and the same goal to accomplish it on time, on schedule, and in the most efficient way possible. So we're really excited to do that. Just brought this to our community several years ago with our projects as we're building some of these infrastructure pieces, but it's a really great model for us to be able to go. So expectations are clearly outlined for the taxpayers, the citizens, the city, and the contractor, and then whatever the project is that we're building. So more to come on that in the future. We also have some grant applications for effluent. So we're expanding our effluent use. This now goes to water conservation and the need, obviously, to protect our water resources, which Lake Havasu City has been a leader in this front for many, many decades. Will continue to do so. This is just one additional expansion to that. We would be able to bring, through this grant, effluent water. So this is grade A effluent treated water. A plus. Oh, sorry, A plus. A's were good for me, but A plus, even better, is at Jack Hardy Park, which is just adjacent to this facility here off of Bunker, Rotary Park, which we all know, and then Cypress Park, which is located near our Mulberry treatment plant, but it also is the soccer field. It's our newest, one of our newest park amenities. So bring effluent to those 3 parks, which are big generators of water. It'll help us to be able to get rid of excess effluent, the treated grade A plus, that we have to use, and we can water our park systems with those. So really exciting to be able to bring that for us. It's going to help with, again, water conservation and our need to be better stewards or good stewards of all of the water resources we have. On that same front, we're working with ADEQ on our permit, and actually on a future council meeting, we'll have an engineering agreement for able to put the infrastructure to put some effluent with our application back into the system. So it would flow back into the lake and into the river. This is a model that's used up and down, up the river system. So Southern Nevada Water Authority, SNWA, which is the Las Vegas Clark County area, has a really great system where they do this. They have a beautiful marsh area. They do a lot of things when it comes to their water stewardship. Nevada gets one of the lowest amounts of allocations of the system, and so they've been really innovative in the early years to ensure that this works. And so they've been doing this for a long time. Bullhead City does it as well, and so Lake Havasu will do that if all of this goes accordingly. And what this would do is this would allow eventually, not that we necessarily would get there, but just kind of as an analogy, where you become almost like a zero-sum user. Again, not that we would get there, but all of the waters that we use, there's only so much water in the system. How do we continue to use that and recycle it? So through effluent uses on our public spaces, or going through and putting it back into the system, and the treatment processes, and all of these different things are going to be the innovations that we're all going to see more and more and more of in the future decades. So I know you and your team are working hard on these fronts. I don't know if you have anything to add to that.
All cities and towns in the Southwest, certainly in Arizona, have lots of conversations with colleagues in other cities, other city managers, other leaders in other cities. And what are we doing to conserve water? What are we doing to put ourselves in a better position that helps our individual cities from a financial perspective, but also from a water conservation perspective? And then how do those help other cities? We have City of Scottsdale spending a lot of money right now on they're trying to take that their effluent, what we call and they have a high rated effluent as well too. But how quickly can you turn that back into the tap? So it's not going from the toilet to the tap, which is the old way of saying things. But what they're doing is they're treating the wastewater, creating an effluent, and then finding a filtering process, either through underground measures or through very, very, very expensive water filtration plants and things of that nature. So it's not like it's going directly. There's a filtration over the course of time to kind of get there. So Scottsdale is spending a lot of money on that type of approach, and we're all watching to see what that looks like at the end of the day. So some of the things that we're talking about here in Lake Havasu is, the water reclamation in terms of we're using less, right? In terms of watering our parks. We're a big water user as a city, so we use water for a lot of things, not just the distribution to our small businesses and to our residents, but to our park systems and other areas throughout the community that's needed. So if we can conserve water and use the grade A plus effluent to water the parks, that's also more cost effective for the taxpayers in Lake Havasu City. So these are win-wins that when these opportunities come up, we want to take a closer look at it. We did this process at London Bridge Beach, LBB Park, a couple years ago, and so that's happening. Has happened for the last several years. Our golf courses in Lake Havasu City, Lake Havasu Golf Club off of Acoma, and even the refuge that's outside of now it's Iron Wolf Golf Club, that's outside of our municipal boundaries. They both use the city's effluent to water their courses that are out there. So then, next steps is us taking a look at some different measures. And then you mentioned the discharge permit. So Arizona Department of Environmental Quality, we've been working with them on a application for a permit for 18 plus months, maybe going on 2 years. They've told us that we're looking at something maybe by the end of the calendar year. So it's already October. So in the next 2 months, we're hopeful to receive that permit from the city. That would allow us to take the grade A plus effluent, and then when the golf courses aren't using it, when we don't have other uses for our parks in the future or otherwise, that we have the ability to discharge that effluent into the lower Colorado River. So that's something that is done upstream. So Nevada does that, Vegas does that before it gets to us. These are conversations that make sense from a regional perspective in terms of adding water to the system for those that are downstream, for Southern California, for the Southern Arizona cities and towns and areas down there. Obviously, ADQ wants to make sure that what we're doing is 100% safe and effective and all the rest. We believe it is. We know it is, but we're going through that regulatory agency to ensure that is the process. We have instances like busy holiday weekends. Right, so like right now we're fine. Our residents, our businesses are using the water to the degree that we can handle it. We can provide the water to the tap, and then when it comes back to us through the shower drain or otherwise, that we have the ability to either deliver it to our customers or we have Vados wells, by the way, that are on the north side of town. The city has invested in our Vados wells where we're taking that and injecting it deep into our aquifer. For decades and centuries down the road in terms of adding to the system on that side of things. But overall, when it comes to adding to the system and making that a better situation for us all downstream is going to be a pretty good deal. Those holiday weekends, what we're looking at is we have a large volume of people that come in. They're using a lot of water, and that generates a lot of effluent. Now, where do you put it? I think I got a couple calls last year in the summertime where we're releasing the effluent on the island side. So we did our best to work with the old golf course, and water is going in that areas. We're transferring it through the community into the Vados wells and to the golf courses and so forth. But we still had excess effluent, and so for those that maybe saw it, we had water traveling down McCulloch. On the island side of things too. So we get to the point sometimes where our capacity for that effluent is right at the rim, and now what do we do with it? And so our solution is that let's add to the system, and let's work with ADQ to make sure it's good for Havasu, but it's also good for our users downstream.
So when you develop and design a system, we look at designing things that go into the future. And so what's the future growth going to be? What are the future needs going to be? And those types of things. So some of this system was built when the island had a golf course, an 18-hole golf course that was using the effluent water. Likewise with Iron Wolf, an 18-hole golf course that is using water. We had a period where the island golf course closed, which it is closed permanently now, not using the water, and then Iron Wolf was remodeling. And so they were closed for a whole season and then only opened 9 holes and then eventually 18 holes. So where do you go when the system's built to discharge the water onto those areas and you can't do it anymore? What is it? So again, keeping with our goal to have redundancy so we don't find ourselves in these types of situations, how do you ensure that we have redundant opportunities? So this is just one more area that we'll be able to do that as well. We also get a lot of questions about why did you let that building be built there? And so I know we've talked over the years about zoning and what zoning is. Zoning is one of the biggest tenets of local government. And it's there because the local community gets to weigh in on what those are. And so the way that that's done is through, it starts with a general plan, so a really high-level general plan. A general plan is where we take land uses and we say, okay, this is going to be employment uses, this will be commercial areas, these will be residential, this will be multifamily residential, just a real general overview of what we have. That process takes about 18 to 24 months as we go through and engage with citizens, stakeholders, users, those types of things. And it's mandatory by statute. So every 10 years we have to do that. And we're getting ready to do that again. So the last time we did it was in 2016. We went through that whole 18-month process, got lots of feedback, lots of engagement, and then was heard at a public hearing with our Planning and Zoning Commission, voted on by the commission for a recommendation to the council. The city council then heard the item in a public hearing as well. They adopted the general plan, the 2016 general plan we have today, and then it has to go in front of the voters in a general election to be ratified. So the voters are ratifying the council's decision on the general plan. So it's a really in-depth, complex, high-level view of what happens in our community. So what that then means is it trickles down, and then all of our development code comes from the general plan. So the development code is our zoning code. You know, what can be built in what area, if you want to build something in an area that's not in the zoning for that, what's the process so you can have consideration to change that. So every property owner has the right and enjoyment to the free use of their property. They have their property rights. And as one of those in the property rights is the ability to ask the jurisdiction to do something different with your property should you want to do that. If that's the case, you file an application with the city. It's then turned over to the Planning and Zoning Commission for a public hearing. This is citizen engagement. The Planning and Zoning Commission looks at it from a technical standpoint. Does it match our zoning code? Does it meet the minimum requirements of our general plan? Actually, before you get to the Planning and Zoning Commission, there's a neighborhood meeting. So people within 300 feet of whatever the desired property is gets a postcard and is invited to a meeting with the proposed applicant of what they're trying to do to make sure that that the neighborhood is either on board, at least aware, and at least notified of something happening. Again, back to the Planning Commission. Then from the Planning Commission, it comes to the City Council. The City Council then makes the final decision on if that zoning use is going to be changed. So again, that's like a zoning general plan 101, but there's lots of things in our community that we're seeing now as we have the infill. So, you know, for many years, we grew one building, one home, one apartment complex at a time. And so we didn't really see like an influx or a flood of this whole neighborhood just got developed or this whole commercial center just got developed. Just not how it happened here. It was literally stick-built one by one by one. But now that we're getting to this position where our community is infilling and we have less and less lots and availability, people are starting to build on some of those lots that might have not been as cost-effective in the early years. Still not that cost-effective now, but it's the only land left. Or they might want to build on a commercial plot that they've had already. And so, you know, some things like, I'll just go to some tall buildings. You know, we have like the hospital. The hospital's in a medical zone. They didn't ask for a variance. Their medical zone's allowed 4 stories. Likewise, the views over on Swanson. That's a tall building. That's a medical zoned area, and so they had the right to go to that height. So it's very few and far between that the Planning Commission or the council does a variance on height. Sometimes it happens, absolutely, but very few and far between because we know that citizens don't like that. And so generally what I've seen over the years, even before I was on council, is that the neighborhood has to be considered. So either view corridors are included or the height exception's not there, or you need to dig down further so that the building is lower. I mean, lots of different techniques to be able to do it, but these all start on the basis of Mr. McCulloch's original zoning. And then from there, the general plans are updated and the zoning codes are updated. So it's always been what it was supposed to be. But if that's an area of concern for you or an area of interest, we do have a general plan process that's getting ready to start. And the news is that the RFQ
request for qualifications
is on the street right now. So we're looking for people that are going to help facilitate, not citizens, that'll come later, but companies that do this, that put together to make sure we meet all the statutory requirements and that we have the general plan process that is laid out is what we're seeking right now. So that RFQ is out there. As soon as the staff will go through a review process, it'll come to council to award the contract to whoever is the selected company to be able to do that. And then the citizen engagement piece will start. That's when we'll start formulating group and stakeholders and citizens to come together to work on this for the next 18 months or so as we develop it. But this is the opportunity where we have to say things about the use of the land. So one example I'll give you, and I'll give it to you just because it's very recent to what we just did at a council meeting last meeting, is at the time of the 2016 general plan process and update, the golf course, the main golf course that Mr. McCulloch built over on Acoma, the courses, was zoned residential estates because that's a residential estates neighborhood. Always was, and that's how it was developed. At the time, the neighbors, 2016, so, well, really 2015, during the community engagement process, during that time, the neighbors were like, you know, what if the owners of the golf course start selling off pieces of the golf course that aren't widely used for houses and starts making the golf course smaller and smaller, or puts in a neighborhood behind their homes and that wasn't really their intent. So through that process,
with that designation through the general plan process on the golf course as well too. With previous to this, it was all zoned residential estates, which means it was zoned for residential for housing. So then there were some struggles too. I think the golf course was sold and purchased less than 10 years ago, right? Mm-hmm. And the grass was going brown, and the previous owners weren't maintaining the area very well. A lot of people in that area bought homes on a golf course, and the fear was that with the existing designation, they could just remove the golf course and start building homes back there. So not only do you lose the golf course as a resident in that area, but you got a lot of people in your backyard as far as permanent housing. One example of how you can address certain things through the general plan process. But
yeah, so through that process, we zoned it golf course. So now there's certainty that it's a golf course, and it's not going to be building homes. Now, in that process, the way these homes were built, again, one at a time, and if you play golf, you'll see when you go on the golf course, the lot lines aren't all the same. So it's like kind of like staggered back and forth. And so what the current golf course owners have agreed to is that they'll sell like these 10-foot swaths of land to the landowner should they want it, so that they can expand and build their pool or whatever their accessory dwelling unit might be in the back of the home, and then eventually create one straight line along the fairway, if you will. And so last council meeting, we had to do a rezone to rezone a 10-foot swath of land so that it could connect to the person's home. So they bought that 10 feet from the golf course to make it all.
For many homes, 10 feet across many backyards.
Yeah, and so it happened and come before council multiple times. But this is a reaction of like, why are you rezoning just 10 feet? Well, that's because through the general plan and citizen engagement, we rezone that to golf course. And again, I provide this just as an example of what the general plan can do and some of the benefits. So
I can add to that a little bit too. I mean, what it does is create through that designation doesn't say that it always has to be a golf course or it always has to be this. What it does is it creates a situation where there's a public participation process that has to occur for any changes to be made, as opposed to something being done by one individual or a handful of individuals. So whether that's on the golf course or our industrial areas or commercial areas or medical districts or what have you, is we want a large picture of what our community should look like in terms of sectors, big picture things, right? And if things want to be built or zoned differently in those areas, then they have to go through the public process, which means they have to talk to our city engineers and our planners and go through that staff process, talk to our fire chiefs and our police chiefs and everything that's associated with there, start that process, and then take that to the Planning and Zoning Commission, where we have our good people sitting on Planning and Zoning Commission looking out for our residents and making a recommendation to the city council, and then the council making that decision. All along the way, many steps for us to engage the public, the neighborhood, and others. So that's a much better way of us developing our city long term in terms of the big picture of what Havasu should look like now, next 10, 20, 500 years from now. So.
This week, the Planning and Zoning Commission heard an item on Kiowa Ponds. This is the area off of Highway 95 and Kiowa. It's a big, large area of land that has highway frontage. It was owned by the city, and we had an applicant petition the city to purchase it. The successful purchaser was Anderson Auto Group, and they are looking to move all of their power sports to this one location. So it'll all go to one area. It'll be a state-of-the-art facility that does sales, service, maintenance, and the like. The zoning that was on this parcel was a planned development, so it was one that was negotiated where it had certain parameters for a big box retailer that never came to fruition back in, I think, 2007, 2008, kind of in that era. And so they had to go through that rezone process to be able to put it there. The city is pretty excited to be able to move away from this parcel of property. We've had it in our portfolio for many years, and we received it from the McCulloch days. It used to be a discharge area for the McCulloch plant, the original McCulloch plant. So
discharge area. So like back in the several years ago, maybe a generation or two back, where you take your used oil out of your vehicle, and what'd you do with it? Maybe you buried it. Well, McCulloch did that with the output of his plants. So the chromium, the chrome process that takes place, there is an there's a product that needs to be disposed of. So Anna, what do you do with it? Oh, it's put in the ground. That'll be fine. So many years later, that the city is looking at remediation and areas to make sure that toxic element doesn't find its way to the water. And we've done just that, spent lots and lots of money over the years on that, and now we have monitoring wells in the area to make sure that it's in a good situation. But
many years of remediation on that. Yeah. So it's been a thing that we're glad to not have anymore. It's, again, safe and all of those things because we did all of that.
We spent all that money, invested all that money, made it safe for the community with that lot, and now it's in a situation where it can be developed.
Which is, it's a great use. The planning or the plan development that was on it before had real high density uses to it. Lots of traffic counts, lots of lights, lots of those components to it. This will have similar, but their operations are not, mostly daytime hours. So it's a good equilibrium, in my opinion. I would think, in the opinion of the commission members as well. I haven't read their full recommendation, but I did watch the proceedings. It's coming to the city council with a vote of 7-0. So we'll have that discussion. Of course, anytime you do a rezone or you have something, especially a large area of land like this, that it's going to impact neighbors. I mean, it's obviously better to have nothing from a neighbor perspective or neighborhood perspective than to have something. And so, unfortunately, some neighbors are not happy with it. But it looked from my assessment of watching the proceedings and hearing the public discourse on it, that the developer or the applicant really worked hard to ensure that it did not have great impacts for the neighborhood. For example, I believe there's like an 80-foot setback from the neighborhood to the building land with landscaping buffers and all of these types of things. So they've really worked hard to be able to come up with that. Again, it doesn't make it any easier for the neighbors. I understand that, but whenever we can find that balance of what's in the best interest of the neighborhood, with also allowing this person to enjoy their private property rights as well and be able to build their building, is a win. But that'll come to council at 2 meetings from now in the cycle. And then this coming Tuesday, we have a meeting, the 8th of October, so we welcome you all to come. 5:30 is our meeting. A couple of the things that we'll be talking about is there's a couple of code sections about our boards, committees, and commissions. So the council has had some discussions about those that serve on our boards, committees, and commissions, and what that might look like, and especially if one of our members of our boards, committee, or commissions is going to run for office. And so in the state, there's state law that says if you're going to run for a different office, an elected office. So our boards, committees, and commissions serve at the pleasure of the mayor and the council. So they're not elected; they're appointed by the mayor and council. But state law says if you're going to run for a different office off cycle, you have to resign that position. So if, for example, I'm the mayor and I was going to run for county supervisor, I'm not doing that, I'm just giving an example, I would have to resign as mayor, and I would then be able to run a campaign to be a county supervisor. Same if I wanted to run for like State House of Representatives. I would have to resign as mayor, and I could run for a State House of Representative position. Now, you might say, especially with the federal elections going on, we have a governor as a running mate, and we have a senator as a running mate, and they're running mates to presidential candidates. They don't have to resign to run. Imagine that at the federal level. So that's not, this is a state law. So state law requires this, not at the federal level. So we had a discussion of the council of what that looks like. Really, our boards, committees, and commissions, the whole reason for them is citizen engagement and to bring expertise from people that have knowledge and information about the subject matter in front of us. So for our airport advisory board, it might be pilots, or it might be mechanics, or it might be aviation enthusiasts. When it comes to our Parks and Rec Advisory Board, it might be parents or grandparents or park users, or someone that worked in recreation in the past. For our Planning and Zoning Commission, it may be somebody that has worked with HOAs, or may have worked in land use planning. They may be engineers, or they may just be citizens at large that have an interest in the development of a community. So all great people and all great candidates to serve on these boards, committees, and commissions, but we need to make sure that we keep it out of the political process. So because they're giving recommendations on really serious things to the city council to make final decisions on. And so, not that it occurred throughout this process, but we had a council member that wanted to come forward and bring this item to say, hey, if you're going to run for an elected office, a local elected office, so if you're going to run for city council or the mayor, that you would resign your position from the board, committee, or commission when you do that. So we had a discussion about this in a public hearing. We then introduced it at our last council meeting, and now we will have final adoption in a public hearing on October 8th. So that's kind of the reasons behind it, and there would be a code change. We're so fortunate in Lake Havasu City to have so many engaged citizens that have applied to serve. You know, we used to have a hard time getting people to serve on our boards, committees, and commissions. Now we have an abundance of really well-qualified, amazing people to offer a level of expertise on all of them, and we want to continue to foster that. But we also need to make sure that they stay, non-biased without a political lens on there. So it's kind of where the discussion was. So we'll see on Tuesday. It'll be up for final consideration from the council. There's been lots of discussion on it from members of the council. So I think that it'll be interesting to see where that goes on Tuesday. Also on Tuesday, we'll have some discussion about the Airport Advisory Board. At our last council meeting, we had Rob Kane, our airport manager, give an update to the city council about the operations at the airport. Really great update on lots of things. And one of the items that he talked about was the modernization of our communication strategies at the airport. So our Airport Advisory Board, again, there are advisory boards to the city council to make decisions. There's not lots of decisions that need to be made for code at the airport because the FAA and ADOT, the Arizona Department of Transportation, have most regulated say in what happens. So it doesn't really matter what the mayor or council say because ADOT and FAA already said what can happen. So there's not been a lot of work for the Airport Advisory Board. And so they haven't even met in 18 months because there hasn't been a need. And so one of the discussions with the modernization of the communication strategy was let's have the ability for the airport manager to use the team of experts, the users at the airport, the aviation enthusiasts, and the breadth of knowledge that these folks have in an effective way. And the Airport Advisory Board is not really that. They haven't met in 18 months because there's nothing to recommend to the council, but Rob would still love to hear the input and the information from these users. And so he offered a variety of things, such as, I'll actually turn over to you. Rob works for your team. Sure. On some of those communication methods he's talking about. Yeah,
anytime we talk about these types of things, we always want to talk about the goal, and then we talk about the steps needed to get to that goal. So we never lose sight of that, what that goal is. And in this case, the goal is to engage the users of the airport in a way that helps us guide the future plans for the airport. So whether the operations or new improvements or the conditions of the runways or taxiways, the facilities, the hangars that the city owns and leases, or the different fixed base operators or the businesses that are at the airport. So how do you bring all these people together in a way that collects their input and gets their feedback? Of course, just like we're doing right now, too, providing them with the information that they need to understand kind of what the plans are, or what FAA is saying, what ADOT's saying, what other agencies or regulatory authorities, what grant opportunities are out there. So it's a flow of information back and forth, and then you take all that information and then you prioritize in a way that you can check some boxes and do some good things, given the availability of resources. So that's the goal. How do you accomplish that? So that's the goal. And traditionally, in Lake Havasu City, other cities as well too, is we have that formalized process through the city code, where it identifies an airport advisory board and those types of things. There's a public notice process, and all the state laws are associated with conducting business through that board. General Kane, by the way, it's a retired 2-star general from Air Force, so he's our airport manager and doing a fantastic job out there. So our airport manager, Robert Kane, is talking about doing formats and venues like we're doing here today. So it'll be called something different, but it's a coffee with the mayor and city manager type of format, where he gets up on several times and engages with the airport users or the general public, gives them updates, gets feedback from the users that are attending the meeting, and then he's also talking about creating some different subcommittees. We're going to have a rotation of people that want to be more engaged than maybe the average airport user, and surround himself with those individuals. Email distribution lists, newsletters. How do we get as much information out to them as possible? And then, again, how do you engage and receive that feedback from them? Also talked about making sure that we're doing multiple times throughout the year, that taking what he's learning, what he understands. Obviously, there's a budget process we go through that's separate to all this. But in addition to that, then coming to the city council and having those updates and providing that feedback and information to the city council, and then through that venue, of course, to the public at large here in Lake Havasu. So, how do we better engage and receive information back from the public to make the airport as successful as possible?
Yeah, so all the ideas and all of the things that Mr. Kane is already doing at the airport that he presented to the city council are good, and it allows the actual free flow of information versus them not meeting at all. And so what is in front of us, and one of the reasons that we bring it up, is repealing the code section for the airport advisory board. And so it sounds real like forceful, like we're repealing it, but we have to take it out of the code so that they can continue to do so that they can do this process instead of the current process. So it's not taking out to stop citizen feedback or user feedback or stakeholder feedback. It's just taking it to where we can use that feedback and actually do good things with it, because we don't want to disenfranchise those board members that don't have the ability to do anything because there's nothing to recommend to the council. So again, the words are going to look weird, but that's what we're doing, is repealing the code so that these things can happen.
It's a conversation will occur. We'll get feedback from our residents and airport users. Council will take a close look at this and make some of those decisions based on all of that. But one example of what we're talking about in terms of the typically codified, we have a lot of residents that maybe don't attend a lot of council meetings. They want to come to a council meeting and they want to engage with a conversation with the city council. So they look at the agenda. There's a portion of the agenda that allows me as a resident to get up in front of the microphone and address the council. State law says that the council can't answer your questions. So you can get up there and speak for 3 minutes and ask questions, and then they look at us and say, well, what's the answer? And we go, we can't talk to you. State law says that we can't respond to you unless you're yelling at us or criticizing us or calling us names. Then we can respond by defending ourselves. But just a really formal, in my mind, a little bit archaic in terms of what we're trying to get to. Again, the goal is how do we get a conversation back and forth between the airport users, and in a call to the public type of approach, it's a one-way communication. So.
And again, that's just cause and effect. So why would state law say that? The reason why is so we have to notice all of our meetings.
Yeah,
what we're going to talk about. Yeah. And so if it's not on the agenda and you want to talk about something that is not on the agenda, we didn't notice the rest of the citizens that might also want to talk about that same item. So, all right, we're getting close to your opportunity to ask us any questions. So before we do that, I do want to say, again, today's October 4th, and we started out the coffee wearing purple in support of our Fighting Knights having their first home game here in Lake Havasu City. So we'll celebrate them, and we wish them all of the success. But we also wear purple because October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And so we would like to bring cause in, or we would like to bring attention to that matter and the serious impacts that it has on communities and victims within our community. And also like to say thank you to Haven Haven Center, Resource Center, for your partnership with Lake Havasu City. They work with victims and our police department to make sure that victims have their needs met. So again, thank you so much for that. I'd like to introduce a few of my colleagues on the City Council, and then we'll open it up for questions. So we first have Councilmember David Lane. Councilmember Lane will take around the microphone and take the questions for us. And then also Councilmember-elect David Diaz is here as well. Welcome, Councilmember-elect Diaz.
End up first.
Thank you, Dave. When you were discussing the Unisource rates, Jess, you said that the city's extra cost so far this year, and I calculated that as about 18 weeks, or 1/3 of the year, is 1.3 million, and that would equal close to 4 million a year, on the budget.
You also, if I can interrupt you, we'll have a back and forth here, right? Is that you're assuming then that the temperatures that we realize in the summer months will continue throughout the balance of the budget year. So cooler temperature means less costs spent on power bills.
Okay.
So hopefully these record temperatures dip down a little bit. So.
Okay, but my real question is, when will the council make adjustments or reductions to the budget to make up for that loss?
Yeah, great question. So the City Council, our budget year, so this is important, is July 1 to June 30th. So we're just in the first quarter of our budget year. So generally mid-year, January, February or so, we take a look at any budget adjustments that may need to be done. And Ms. Olson, our Administrative Services Director, will bring those forward for the council consideration to reduce spending in one area so that we can cover costs in another area.
I just want to have a brief discussion on the Island Trail, or the bike, walking, jogging path. I'm a regular user. I'm out there every day. I've noticed some issues that have propped up, but before I even get into those, I want to thank you guys for the paving and the sealing of that pathway. Excellent. I mean, those people that use it love it. So that's a big plus. There's been a couple issues that come up with some of the trees, limbs and such have overgrown the path. There is a tool, a mechanism to report that. And for me specifically, I have reported them. Unfortunately, there's been no action. I did have an opportunity to talk to one of the Parks and Rec maintenance people today. And he reported to me that he's not getting the notifications of these things. And I showed him, you can actually demonstrate to them that it has been reported. And this is a safety issue. I don't know if you're aware, but some of those limbs have thorns. And boy, you can get ripped up on those. The other issue is some of these limbs are actually hanging down. So now you've got your joggers and power walkers and the bicyclists, battling with each other to, bob and weave to get around this stuff. One of the issues that with this program, Havasu Now, is that there's no feedback to the person that has submitted something as it's been acknowledged. It's going to be handled in a couple of days or a week, 2 weeks, a month, whatever. There's no feedback on that. I encourage you to look into that and see how that can be changed so that, you're going, when's this going to be addressed? When's this going to be addressed? And then, you know what I mean? Since there is no feedback, you don't know where you stand on the topics. The other component that we saw is when this work was done, the path actually had markers, 0.5, 1 mile, so on. Let the person know this jogging or biking, how are they doing on their times. That was submitted and it was closed, saying that this is going to be resolved. There's been no action on that whatsoever. So I don't know what the deal is on that. Again, you don't know if there is a plan or there is a goal because there is no feedback to the person that submitted something on Havasu now. So that would be good to get something moving in that direction.
Okay. Yeah, please.
We'll serve Mr. Kozlowski. You can raise your hand. He'll have a conversation with you right after the meeting and talk to you a little bit about the plan forward in terms of striping and paint and some of the maintenance issues that are that you're receiving through our parks maintenance. They're very, very, very busy, and but that doesn't mean that your concerns shouldn't be addressed, and you shouldn't have the feedback that you need, and as a resident that's got a concern and is trying to help, not just for your situation, but for others like you that are using the same facilities. And what does that look like? We've had some conversations on the Havasu Now app, which is a wonderful tool, right? So we have an app out there. You can download it on your Apple Store or Play Store on the Android side. You can take a picture, you can tag your location from a GPS standpoint, you can describe the issue, different categories that are on there, and then you hit submit. Historically, now I'm talking historically, and these aren't excuses because we have a plan moving forward, and so I'm glad you raised the question. So historically, we get a flood of these that come in, right? So every morning, Public Works is getting a couple dozen of these, and Parks is getting a couple dozen of these, and all throughout on a daily basis. So we're going through and keeping track of these things, but then we're closing them out so that we can, move on to the next days and the next days. But we're not providing the necessary feedback to the individual that provided that request. So whether it's something that we can do or something that we can't do, you deserve and to be treated respectfully when it comes to that submission. So I was Mr. Foggin as our Public Works Director. He was talking about this with me just a couple weeks ago, and how can we improve this process in a way that's going to allow us to communicate more effectively with the resident that's submitting that complaint. So rather than us just saying basically what you're receiving is we got it, we received it, we'll take care of it, don't worry about it. We can do better, and we will do better. But please, Mr. Kozlowski, Anthony will have a conversation with you and in terms of how we can follow up with you in this case for the two issues that you raised. Thank you.
Yes, I'm here today at the recommendation of our local code enforcement office. And it has to do with the regards of the ordinance of dogs and the number of dogs. I've recently encountered a situation where a neighbor has at least 8 or 9 dogs. It has been a big impact of cost to the city because animal control is now made for personal visits to the house. The health department will be there in the last week 2 times, and there's absolutely nothing that can be done because there's nothing in our code enforcement package for the number of dogs people can have, let alone the impact that this has had on the neighbors because of the smell of the property and barking dogs starting at 6:30 in the morning. And it doesn't end there because now we have had a visit from our police department with 3 officers. It took at least 20 to 25 minutes yesterday. And the court's time it's going to take to straighten some of this out. So
what are the challenges? So is it the number of dogs, or it sounds like they're not taking care of the waste and the barking? Or
from talking to animal control, it's not just an isolated issue. There's a number of people around this town
that have an overabundance of dogs in residential areas. Mojave County's got a dog limit. Kingman's got a dog limit. For some reason, Lake Havasu used to have a dog limit, and it is no longer on the books. So we have no way to enforce it.
We will, thank you for bringing it up. We'll have to take a look at it. I don't have any information on it right now, but this is how things are started. And so you planted a seed, we'll look into it, and we'll see what the code is in the county and in the city of Kingman, and what we can do, and get feedback from more citizens to see if that's something we should address.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'd appreciate it.
Thank you. Yes.
I'll get to you. I'll get back to you. She was next.
Good morning, gentlemen. Being a Lyft driver, I get a lot of passengers from the island, and they like to ask a lot of questions. One of the big questions is, as people are learning about the new bridge, is there a timeline? I get that all the time. Do you know when it's going to get started, when it might be done? Is there an answer to that? And I've had a couple of people ask, since there's more and more people moving onto the island, is there any plans for a fire department?
Yes, I'll take the fire department, and you can take the timeline on the bridge. So there's no plans for a fire station on the island. The chief actually was in front of the council within the last year, and the amount of calls that we get out there is very, very small. And all of the houses out there are sprinkled and required to be sprinkled. We do have a mobile command center that we take out there that opens up for emergency medical services, so police and fire, should we have big events out there or big areas. So there are no plans currently. The nearest fire station to the island is Station 5. The nearest fire station to the island is Station 5, which is just right around the corner next to Sundance, off of Lake Havasu Avenue, kind of by KFC, Burger King, that area. So it's very, very close. They're getting there in a really rapid pace. The fire study also doesn't support that. But you want to talk a little bit about the timeline on the second bridge?
Yeah, I certainly will. And then just to add to that conversation too, when we look at strategic locations for fire stations, the last place you want to put them is on the very outskirts of the community. You want to put them in areas where there's a radius of a service area that surrounds them, right? So you want to look at a map and put our fire stations there, and then put large circles in terms of response times of where we can get there. And if you put that on the edge of the community, then you're cutting off half of that circle, of that radius. So we want to make sure that they're strategically placed to respond to all areas. And Station 5 is set up for those response times. That's there on an ongoing basis. So, and then on the bridge, we're looking at the contract comes before the council on the 22nd. I talked about all the different aspects that are associated with it. Let me start with the short answer. The number that I've been putting out there, and I'm staking the mayor's reputation on this, is 4 years. 4 years is the goal that we've set, and we think that we can reach for the ribbon cutting for the second bridge. Which, by the way, I love City Manager Toby Cotter in Bullhead. They have a great mayor, great city council, great staff, great community, and because of that, we can tease back and forth. But we're going to build our bridge 24 years earlier than it took them. So.
I just want to make a little comment about the bridge. I want to thank you so much for the work you've done in making sure everything is taken care of in advance. The piping, I mean, as the average citizen, I never even thought about the pipes under the channels. So thank you very much for looking ahead with that. Also, I think that with the second bridge, I just want to say that, of course, we're all concerned about the price. Every person here is concerned about, we're thinking this much, but, in 4 years, it may end up being more. But I think it's important that we make sure that the people that are doing the bridge have done bridges. I don't think we want to get a cheaper person coming in that's never built a bridge. So I just wanted to make that comment.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
And it will be a bridge builder that builds our bridge.
Good morning. When it came to the airport advisory, something you might want to consider in the code is modifying their purpose. One of the things I was thinking would be good, we know the FAA, which is federal, ADOT state, but we still need to look for us. And it's one of our key important things, especially those of us who use Amazon a lot. I don't fly in and out of here, but my packages do. Maybe we could repurpose them to do inspections every quarter. Is this meeting our needs as citizens of Lake Havasu? The feds will take care of the feds, the state, but are they taken care of here? Because Mike seems to be doing a great job, Mr. Kane, but there's a lot there. Maybe they could be repurposed to look at certain aspects locally that affect us at the airport and give a report to him to give to the council that says, yep, they're meeting our local standards.
Great point, but as you can imagine, the FAA has rules on that too, on who can do inspections. So, but as far as having users that are going to be impacted on it, that would still happen, just not under the purview of the council. So it'll still occur, it would just happen at the purview of the users and stakeholders so that they're not restricted by the open meeting laws and the agendas and all of the things. They can actually just handle it. Because they're the experts. So that's kind of the idea behind it, but great point.
You mentioned inspections too. Our city employees at the airport do annual inspections on every hangar that's out there. So not to the degree of making sure that it's being used for aviation purposes. So a lot of work, a lot of inspections do take place out there right now. Anybody else?
All right, so I have some more. I have a lot of fun things to share with you yet. So I'm glad we actually have a little bit of time with questions. So with questions, we have a couple of exciting updates. We have Jack Hardy Park, which is on Bunker Drive, just located adjacent to the City Hall complex and the courthouse. They're having a grand opening for the new playground park that was installed on Monday at 9 a.m. We would love for you all to come. Again, this Monday at 9 a.m., October 7th. And this is the one that has the balloons, right? Yeah, so kind of replicates
a hot air balloon theme to it.
Yeah, so very cool. We'd love to have you there, 9 o'clock Monday. We're also adding some new drinking fountains throughout Rotary Park and London Bridge Beach Park. And a new section of handrails is has been installed actually at Site 6, and that was done by our in-house team. Some great events with the concerts in the park are back. The weather hopefully is going to start cooling down, and it'll be nice. But kickoffs tomorrow, or actually kicks off today at London Bridge Beach, 6 to 9 p.m. So if you don't go to the Fighting Nights or you don't go to First Friday, then go to concerts in the park and bring your blankets and chairs. We'll also have a glow swim pool party at the Aquatic Center on October 11th from 7 to 9. Our youth talent show is at the stage under the London Bridge on October 24th, and then our fall fun fair is at October 26th at Rotary. And we're having a Halloween spooktacular at the Rotary Community Park on October 31st. This was created by our recreation team for those that Fright Night is too large and too much for them, that they can go to the spooktacular at the Aquatic Center, which is a little more low-key event. Do we? Youth Talent Show is at the London Bridge Beach stage. What did I say that? Because that's right. You guys are right. Under the bridge. Okay, so it's at the London Bridge Beach.
In the years past, it's always been underneath the London Bridge. We're talking about the Youth Talent Show for those not on the microphone. Yeah, but we're switching venues because we're going to do it bigger and better. Right.
Nice. And Spooktacular is at Rotary. Yes. At Rotary Community Park. So that's on, of course, on.
Check out our website, check out our Facebook page, other social media, and we got some fun videos out there, some flyers, and other means. Lots happening.
Lots happening. Go to our website for more information. Go to golakehavasu.com. You'll see all the events that are occurring in Lake Havasu. Another fun event is I'm actually going to be heading to London before we see each other again, and I'm going to meet with the Lord Mayor, and they are bestowing an honor that our former Mayor Mark Nexon received, our former State Senator Linda Binder has received, Michael McCulloch has received it, and John Parrott, a local, longtime community member, has also received it from the Lord Mayor. It's the Freedom of the City, and it's as we continue our long-standing relationship with the City of London and our connection between our two nations. So really excited to be able to do this and go on their area. We've invited them over several times since I've been in office, and real excited to be able to go over and see in their area. So I'll share all that with you when I get back. Oh, yeah, and as Jess said, I'm paying for that personally. That's not a city. I'm going on behalf of the city as an ambassador of the city, but I'm paying for that. That's not a taxpayer expense at all. It's hard for me to justify that type of a thing for the taxpayers. So, yeah, I'll be paying for that, and thank you for bringing that up. Yes, so yeah, pretty excited about it to go see what they are. But let's end with fun facts, like we always end. Our next coffee will be on Friday, November 1st, here at the same spot. But this is all going to be about Lake Havasu High School because of the Fighting Knights in their first home game. So the first football coach was Lee Barnes, and the stadium's actually named after him. And Lee Barnes is a former council member as well of Lake Havasu City. So the Lake Havasu High School began construction in 1968, and it was scheduled to open in 1969. Before the high school was built, students traveled to Kingman. A lot of us know that story, attending the Mojave County Union High School. So they were bussed up, and that was the old highway. So London Bridge Road, the old highway. It took a while to get to Kingman. The football team played at a nearby sod farm until the fields were being built, were the Lee Barnes Stadium. They hired originally 15 teachers for Lake Havasu High School, expecting an enrollment of 250 students, but 340 actually registered for that first year. And then tonight's game is the Thunderbird Titans at home. Again, we wish the Fighting Knights good luck on their game tonight. We thank you all for joining us and being a part of our great community, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.